So to start off with question number two in the research process, last year I wasn't really familiar with the school's database or Google Scholar even, so finding sources was a bit difficult to do. So when I was first writing my first big paper in English 1301, I was really lost when I was trying to find sources, and not to consider that not every source that you find in the school's database is going to be credible. So imagine trying to write your first paper. You don't know how to use the database. You don't even know how to check if it's credible or not. It was definitely something I was not prepared for. I think the first thing that I think one of the most important things I learned when doing the research process was, for one, learning how to use the school's database to kind of search for what I'm looking for. Secondly, it would be how to tell which sources are credible and which aren't. And lastly, it would be kind of like when you're doing your own research, to respect the privacy and keep in mind that sometimes you have to hide um, the identity of your participants. So I think now I do know how to look for sources in the database. So for me, I was doing peer feedback, and before that used to be like a really difficult thing for me to look for, but now I know how to do this. Um, so usually I just go to LibGuides, and then I go by all guides, and um, you know, maybe for my sociology, I was doing research for femicides. So when I was doing that class, I was going through this, and I was looking for sociology, and then find articles, and then articles, and then I went to JSTOR. I kind of like using JSTOR all the time instead of the other one. I forgot what it was called. Eco, something like that. And I just kind of typed in what I was trying to find, keywords. Keywords was homicides, and I was doing it on Mexico. So things for femicides came up. Introduction, violence against women in Latin America, and if you need a citation, you can just do it here. You can download it and see what you're trying to look for. So that just I now understand how to use it, which was very helpful for my other class, sociology and sociology. Um, and when you're looking for credible sources, for example, this one, I learned how to do this, and I think one thing that was really helpful was the CARS worksheet. I kind of did use it for the sources that I was doing. I didn't really do the whole worksheet, but I was looking through it when I was looking for these sources, and looking for the authors of these. I was looking through this and making sure that they filled out the majority of them. I don't really have the worksheet because I wasn't doing all that, but it was definitely very helpful when I was doing my sociology class, or when I was doing the sociology thing. Doing identify the author, which was Mercedes Rivera, and then Victoria J. Fui was the translator. And then looking her up, looking up Mercedes Victoria, which I couldn't really find the contact of the author, but I did, see information about the author, which, she's an anthropologist and a feminist and does a lot of, has a lot of published works about femicide and feminism. And then I looked up for like the Sage Publications. It's a pretty credible publisher. And I just looked through all of these and look up for information. And for the most part, it was a pretty credible source. And I did use this for my final actually for sociology. I think it was this one. So Mercedes Oliveira. I think I used it for my final for sociology, which was for this one. This one, it's the one that I used, and it was using it for contributing factors of femicide. So definitely very helpful for this class and like for any future classes that I have. And then lastly, it was respecting the privacy of like my participants. When Miss Bonnie was kind of like talking about her own experience with like not really thinking completely through of like what kind of information she put on her essay, on her paper, and that kind of having consequences to it. So I definitely did ask my participant if he was, uncomfortable with, having his name there or his face, and he was like, I don't want my name there, so I didn't. And I, made sure that when I was doing the interview for my project 2, I used my interview for my project 2 for one of the animations. I did make sure that I didn't say where he was living, even though where he lived was kind of important. Travel distance was something that was very important for one of my projects. I just kind of like he did mention that like his location was very far away from like the university, which was a big factor in what I was trying to convey in my essay. I think keeping that in mind is going to be really useful for if I ever get the chance to do another research paper, another project, another experiment or interview. I think that's going to be something that I definitely need to keep in mind.